Have you ever been asked which generation you belong to, only to find yourself wavering between confidently knowing your bracket and drawing a blank on which letter matches your birth year? You are not alone. The most common response we hear is, I know what year I was born, but I'm not sure if I'm X, Y, or Z. That's where we come in. We are here to demystify the generations and help you pinpoint your own, while also sparking curiosity about where others in your life might lie. From the outset, we want to emphasize that although society loves to categorize us into neat generational boxes, here at Mind the Gen Gap, we believe it's perfectly natural to have overlapping inclinations. You might feel more Y and less X, and that's absolutely okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Goldie, your host for the first three generations:
And my name is Lakshan.
silent, boomers, and X. They go in that order. I wanted to do my best to give you all a more visual experience when describing these brackets. Let me tell you a story that weaves through the lives of those who came before us, each generation shaped by its own unique challenges and triumphs. It's a story of survival, transformation, and resilience, painted against the backdrop of world events that defined them. I invite you to see the world through their eyes. Let's start with the silent generation. They are bracketed between 1928 and 45. Picture this. My grandparents got married on a moving train. It wasn't a grand orchestrated event, but a desperate, hurried union amidst chaos. We're talking about 1947. They were forced to evacuate their home due to the partition of India and Pakistan. This wasn't just a difficult time. It was a period filled with fear, uncertainty, and the primal instinct to survive. The train was more than just a means of escape. It was a lifeline. Imagine the clatter of wheels against the tracks, the murmurs of anxious passengers, and the sense of shared dread. My grandparents, like many others, were thinking not of a honeymoon or celebrations. Their marriage was a symbol of joining forces, a promise of mutual protection in a world turned upside down. My grandmother's family sought stability and safety, and her marriage to a man of their faith offered a glimmer of hope in an uncertain future. They said goodbye to their families, not knowing when or if they would ever see them again. Home was no longer a place, but a memory. There was no room for choice or questions, only silent, submissive resignation to the circumstances. This was the silent generation, a group marked by their ability to endure and adapt to unimaginable hardships. Their stories echo the struggles of those who lived through the Great Depression, World War II, and other global upheavals. Lakshan, what are you thinking?
I have so many thoughts. I don't know where to start. First of all, this is the first time I'm hearing about the story of how your grandparents got married. And as you were narrating this entire thing, it really made me understand why they called the silent generation, because it was at a time when opinions didn't matter. You have no, it's not a matter of right or anything else of that nature. It's your opinion doesn't matter because it is what it is. You suck it up, as they say, and you move on. And hence the name silent generation, because that's all they had to do. They had to deal with so much, and you painted such a vivid picture. Because someone like me, who was born in 1996, I can't even fathom this, because to me it's a story. That's all. It's not a reality that I can see myself being immersed in. But it
Absolutely.
makes so much sense to me why they call the silent generation, why they operate the way they do.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. I think the words resignation, survival, all echo in the story that we hear of those times, correct? And as you rightly said, it was all about resolve and not about emotional management. You just had to survive. Hmm? So let's continue. We now move on to the baby boomers. These are bracketed between 1946 and 64. As the world emerged from a shadow of war, a new generation was born into a time of unprecedented change and prosperity. Picture the post-war era. Cities bustling with life, the economy was booming, and a sense of optimism was in the air. This was the world of the baby boomers, a generation defined by growth and opportunity. My parents are a part of this generation. They grew up in a time when anything seemed possible and literally meant uprooting yourself from what was your home, in this case their country, and making the bold move to explore new territories. Europe was the answer for many, and like this, my father was one who chose to go to Spain. The horrors of the past were fading, replaced by a belief in progress and the promise of the famous American and European dream. The civil rights movement was challenging old norms. The Vietnam War was sparking fierce debates. And the space race was fueling dreams of reaching nothing other than the stars. In cities like Madrid, families like mine were enjoying the fruits of economic prosperity. My parents bought their first house in 1980, a symbol of stability and success. Consumerism flourished, and the ideal of the nuclear family took center stage. Yet, beneath the surface, this generation was also questioning authority and pushing for what we call social change, driven by the transformative events they witnessed. It's important to note that the boomers across the world were trying to shed old beliefs and embrace new ones. This created an interesting mishmash of conflicts that was later passed on to the generation that came after them, X. And so, Lakshan, what are your thoughts thus far?
It's. I would love to say that this is a trip down memory lane because it sounds like such a wonderful time to be a part of. But again, I was born so much later than all this happened, and I also understand that baby boomers, the term, is coined so because one, there was an economic boom, and because of the boom in economy and opportunity, there was also a boom in the number of children being born, babies being born, hence baby boomer, right? And it also shows how a shift in the cultural narrative and the events that transpired create such a different outlook on how things should be. The previous generation, the silent generation, they were all about, buck up, it is what it is, accept it for what it is, shut up, get the work done. Opinions don't matter, emotions don't matter, none of it matters. You just get the work done. But in a world where that is no longer a reality, when those kind of beliefs get imposed on from the silent generation to the boomers must be wondering, why should I believe this stuff? This is not true. My the world I see, it's nothing like what you guys saw. Why should I act on the beliefs that you imposed on me when those beliefs no longer serve me in a world where there's opportunity in abundance? I can travel to a different country, different continent, right? And embrace the American dream for myself and make something out of it for myself and my family. It also shows why and how differently both the generations think. I see so vividly the way that my grandparents, my mom's side, they are in their 70s and 80s. My dad's side, they're in their 80s and 90s. And I can also tell the difference in the way they operate and the way they think. My mom's side grandparents are still so active, mobile. They cannot sit in one place because they're so used to to opportunity and to doing something with it. While my parents' side, my father's side, is a little different. It's like, okay, it is what it is. And it shows, I can see it myself, right? While, of course, the timeline in terms of when they were born may not exactly be very precisely the same, the mentality is still there. So that's what I
Right.
see.
As you were describing, the differences between both sides of your family, I think this echoes very heavily with the trickling effects from one generation to another, and the sort of the remains that still are contained so compactly in either or. And I think for me, a very clear distinction between silent and boomers is resignation versus relaxation. There was just a certain air that they could breathe very differently once you moved into becoming a boomer, you know. So let's continue and address the final generation for today. Now, this is obviously my favorite because I personally am a late X. These are bracketed between 1965 and 1980. As I was saying, I'm a late X and also the eldest of my siblings and their cousins. Not their cousins, other cousins. We were born into a world of shifting sands. Picture the late 60s and 70s, the end of the Vietnam War, the rise of personal computing, and the onset of the AIDS epidemic. I was very young at this time, but I have vivid memories of AIDS being a very taboo subject, needles and drugs and infectious fear. I also remember discrimination faced by the gay community, and it was being associated with AIDS. Today, you would think this is such a piece of disinformation, right? News was indeed disjointed and caused a lot of panic for the younger Xers like myself. Gen X saw the world through a lens of skepticism and pragmatism as well. This was also the era of what they called the latchkey kids, where both parents had started working. And unless you had a nanny or some other adult to come home to, most of us were met with empty houses and encouraged to travel to school by ourselves. I remember my mother clearly telling me that I was put into daycare at the age of 3 months because she had to help my father in the office. Family structures were also changing, with higher divorce rates and a growing sense of independence. They learned to fend for themselves, becoming resourceful, adaptable in a rapidly changing world. Often known as the culture that went from grunge to Google. The grunge fashion movement, one I can relate with, was a rejection of consumerism and materialism of what the 80s brought. It was a way of saying you didn't need expensive clothes to be cool or successful. It was a message that would resonate with Gen Xers for years to come. Gen Xers led the change and the charge in adopting the internet and social media, injecting a fresh dose of authenticity and creativity into what we call the digital landscape. Their entrepreneurial drive, shaped by a strong sense of self-reliance and, once again, independence, proved to be a game changer in the tech industry. Unafraid to take risks and explore uncharted territories, Gen Xers birthed a wave of online ventures and services. This innovative ethos set the stage for the rise of tech behemoths such as Google, Amazon, and of course, Facebook. Economies became more global for Gen X with the fall of the Berlin Wall and with the birth of media channels such as MTV that enveloped the world on a stage like never before. Each generation thus far we can see carries imprints of their times. I personally like to believe that we can see overlapping layers of each other, with the closest one to your own generation. In a very large sense, I don't think it's about dates and facts, but about lived experiences of millions that weaves into the fabric of our shared history. It's the stories that before us that shape the foundation upon which our present and future are built.
I
And
have
so,
so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts, Goldie. Um, it's almost as if this, I won't call it a trend, but I know the way that, say, millennials and Gen Z and even Gen Alpha, the three generations we'll be talking about in the next episode,
hmm,
the way they operate when it comes to their personal sense of identity, a lot of it is rooted in how they dress. And it seems to me, based on what you shared right now, that at some level it started from your generation.
hmm,
That's the
abs-
first thought that came up for me.
very well observed, because obviously, as we've said, generations became more relaxed as time went on. And with this came a sense of wanting to have an identity of your own. And of course, growing up, one always identifies their self worth, self concept with things they wear. And thus, fashion became one of the biggest things in the late 60s, I would say. Moving on until today, everybody has an identity based on what they're wearing. And this is just the cusp, isn't it? The sort of the tip of the iceberg. For me personally, it also raises a very large question where, when it comes to individuals, even from the same generation, but living in different cultural contexts, because I can resonate with this, right? I grew up seeing my parents, who were boomers, and they were raised in India. However, they had chosen to raise their family in Spain. And in a large sense, I was surrounded every day by boomers from multiple diversities. And so this begs me the question of the final reflection, Lakshan. Are generational experiences not monolithic? They are deeply shaped by cultural influences that may dictate how individuals are perceived in the world, how they interact with each other, and how they choose to navigate their life. And perhaps it's understanding these differences that really foster deeper cross cultural empathy and appreciation for the same generation in a different country.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and for some reason, the first thought that came up for me is with respect to how we view certain cities. I can speak in the context of India, maybe not Europe or Spain for that matter, or the world in general, right? But I do know that there is a particular kind of connotation of belief about people from Bangalore, and there's a certain kind of connotation about people from Delhi, from Mumbai. And one such example is that people from Bangalore think that those uh, from Mumbai are too fast, as in life moves very, very fast, very quickly, and that is how they are. And people from Mumbai, anytime they come to Bangalore, they're like, "Oh God, why are you guys so slow with everything? You're so lazy. You're so this, you're so that." And it's got nothing to do with the individuals. No, there are plenty of people who operate at such a rapid pace, who are living in Bangalore as well. And there are those who are a little more laid back, who live in Mumbai as well. But in general, it's like there is an energy or like a collective sense of identity within a city itself, right? So it it shows up in terms of everything. If you decide to categorize uh, people based on where they're from, when they were born, how they look, you want to start having so many assumptions and preconceived notions. And of course, stereotypes exist for a reason. There are certain um, observed truths, but it doesn't apply across the board. You can't just apply a coat of paint to all of these people and say, "Yep, you're this color now, or this is how you are now."
100%. I think you summed it up beautifully, because Bangalore and Bombay are two very commonly, talked about examples in India. And I'll I'll complicate it a little further for you. My mum is from what was Bombay, and my dad was from a small city called Jodhpur in Rajasthan. Now you can imagine the contrast between them and them moving to Spain and coming to a
I don't know why I find it so funny. Like when you said it like that, I'm like, wow, okay. So one person is from here, the other is from here. And if I remember correctly, they're, they're born on the fringes of two different generations as well, if I'm not wrong, right? So there is
yes.
also that mindset that shows up, different cities from India moving to Europe, to Spain, to a different culture altogether. Oh man, wow, that's
Exactly. I mean, you just basically summarized our episode today on how you overlap over generations. Dad was indeed a boom, a boomer in its classic sense, 49 born. Mum is a 55 born, so she, goes not so much into, X, but she's definitely a late boomer. And, you know, just to finish off today, because this conversation has been wonderfully interesting, I think, and will hopefully have our audience asking for more. Let me share with you my final lived experience. My husband is a Gen X, just a year older to me, but his parents are both from the silent generation. And yet, he is as X as you come. So, it begs the question, as the company, so the color. And there's so many fabrics that are woven into that, aren't there?
yeah, absolutely. And I think it also shows up in our dynamic, you and me, and the people we work with as well.
Yes.
It's a matter of understanding everybody, learning to adapt, learning to speak the language of other generations as well, to kind of bridge the gap or of misunderstanding and of misconceptions and of misalignment and incongruence and all that stuff, right? And I think that's what we're all about. And um, it also shows that if we're able to make it work, the kind of results that can come out of it. I think one way of going about doing that is by looking at who are the people that you are surrounding yourself with, and asking yourself, can I surround myself with different kinds of people to get a different perception? Oh no, that's not the right word. Different perspective. That's the more accurate word, right? And yeah, that's what came up for me as you were sharing this right now, Goldie.
Yeah. And so we could go on and on, really, can't we? But there is a limit to what we have set ourselves up for. And I think closing words for me would be: if you have made it to the end of episode 1, thank you so much. Don't miss the next one, where Lakshan will embark on the next 3 generations.
Yeah, the ones who are spoken about the most today.
Absolutely, because we are in times of Alpha, Y, and of course, millennials. So, shall we ask people to subscribe and like and give us all the love?
Yeah,
Good
might
time
as
to
well.
say?
I mean, they've come all the way to the end of this episode, right? What else is really there to do? No? Might as well just leave a like, leave a review, hit the
Yeah.
5-star button, subscribe, and wait for the next one.
And you know what? If you're a boomer, find an X to subscribe for us. If you're an X, find someone in the silent generation to subscribe to us, because we are catering to a diverse and inclusive audience, as we've said in the very, very beginning from the get-go. So until next time, muchas gracias. Hasta pronto.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.